Welcome to Wilder Wolves, Hall of Fame mode fandom. My name is Wilder Adams, and the Minnesota Timberwolves have won against Charlotte and the Brooklyn Nets. And sometimes people will be like, yeah, those are bad teams and whatever. But if anybody follows this team, they know that if we could beat a bad team, that's a bigger accomplishment than beating the Oklahoma City Thunder. And for today's episode, I am joined by Evan of the Daily Wolves to talk about this Timberwolves team. 4-3, winning two in a row. Evan, how are you doing?
Man, I'm great. Again, can't ever complain after a Timberwolves victory. Yes, it was a little bit ugly at parts of the game, but there was also obviously glorious parts of the game as well, man. So I'm sure we'll get into all that today.
You know, they say in football all the time, right? You just take the
Mhm,
win. A win is a win. And like you said, it hasn't been perfect, but they've won by decent margins against Charlotte and Brooklyn. And
mhm.
we can, if we could do a full episode in the future talking about where the defense is lacking right now and some of the concerns. And just briefly on that, I thought it was really intriguing how once they went to the zone in the fourth quarter, just how much everything stagnated for Brooklyn. So, you want to talk about the defense really quickly before we get to the meat of the show?
Yeah, I feel like the defense this year has been all over the place. It's really, I mean, Nikhil is really the only guy that left in the offseason, so I knew they would take probably a step back defensively, but they've taken quite a bit of a step back. But I think a lot of the defensive problems might not be something that they can't fix. I think like a lot of it's just effort because now I've seen it like last night, we saw it in this game, we saw it in the game before that. They kind of lock in and then defensively they're really good when they're locked in, and they've been doing it for pretty much just a quarter at a time. It seems like they kind of play with their food for 3 quarters before they feel like they have to lock in. And right now, they need to figure out this is the Western Conference. They're in it, and it's a gauntlet, and all these teams come to play. And last night, you saw it. The Nets come out. They're scrappy. They're hustling, and they're outworking the Timberwolves. And I think the Wolves were just caught off guard. They didn't really know what was coming. And Minnesota, when they went into that zone later and they started locking down, you see how special they truly can be. You see how it gets into the Brooklyn Nets heads when they started playing that way, when they started playing aggressive against them. They started missing shots. They started rushing things. There was turnovers. They're making silly fouls. And that's what Minnesota really took the game. And man, it's just it's crazy, man. It's this team is so good. Like for a long time, we had a team, James, where we weren't that team that could just win a game if we wanted to in the fourth, where we were that good, that talented, like the Boston Celtics of the years, like these really good teams that are playoff teams, where if they could kind of play sloppy all game and then they can decide to just win it in a quarter. Minnesota is like pretty much like that good, which is special. And when Ant comes back, they're going to be really good here.
That's a great way to frame it, just the steering of expectation. The Timberwolves, like you said, sometimes teams, even though it's been in the nature of this team in the past, they play with their food. They don't play as efficiently with turnovers and
Mhm.
pace and everything that is in this team's DNA. But then there's also another part where the difference between some of those other teams that played with their food in the past, Minnesota still more often than not figures out how to win those games like the elite teams you're saying. And I do think
Mhm.
that is a good sign. And I do have some concerns about the defense,
Mhm.
the lack of point of attack depth that there was last year, especially a lot more weight on Ant and Jaden than I like. But we're going to go way more in depth on the defense in a future episode. Today is a good vibe episode. We're going to talk about three players today and really focus in on them: Julius Randle, Jaden McDaniels, and Donte DiVincenzo, because I think those three, especially during Ant's injury, have been among the brightest spots and reasons to be optimistic, especially about the offensive end as the season goes on. I mean, Minnesota's a top 10 offense without Anthony Edwards right now. And I think that
Mhm.
itself, even though they've played lower competition, that's a great sign. So, Evan, let's just start right away with the second star on the team who's been absolutely bonkers. Career start this year, 26 points, 7 boards, 6 dimes, just had his first triple double. Let's talk about Julius Randle, Evan. When watching
Mm.
Julius Randle these past couple weeks to start the season, just what goes on your mind with one, just where Julius Randle, his ascension, but also just overall how well he's playing? What do you think?
Yeah, we saw it last year with Randall. The last 20 games or so of the season, he was just amazing. And then it went into the playoffs where he became even better. And the version of the playoffs, the series with the Lakers, when he's electric, when he was playing like an all-star player, that's the Julius you're seeing right now. He's absolutely incredible. 19 points last night, 10 assists, 11 rebounds, triple double across the board, making his teammates better, hustling, playing like an all-time veteran. And on top of that, playing like an all NBA player this whole season. These aren't just all-star numbers. He's playing all NBA right now. Like it's been incredible to see. He was scoring more points than Victor Wembanyama, just to give people kind of everyone has the light on Wemby, but like there's guys like Randall over here that are just been absolutely amazing. They've been balling, man. I think his confidence, getting his feet in the ground in Minnesota, not being traded right before his season, understanding the team's got his back, learning how to play with Rudy Gobert, which is super tough. And then I think it was big last year when he sat down with that injury. He had talked about it to like analyze it, figure out where he fit in the team, and it's been huge for the Wolves. He's been in control the entire time he plays. He's not doing those silly turnovers. He's not just dribbling the ball out. He's really organized now, I feel like. And that's like the biggest thing I've noticed is he's picking and choosing whether he wants to pass. He knows when to drive and be aggressive. And I think just the evolution of Randall becoming what he's becoming, it's going to take so much pressure off of Anthony Edwards because Randall's becoming a go-to player that if he wants to, he can go get his. And I think like that's what the Timberwolves were missing last year with Anthony Edwards is they just didn't have that. I think Randall was still kind of finding that. And he was newer to it in the playoffs. If he continues to do this and Anthony Edwards comes back, especially with the playmaking side with Randall, he's been incredible. Like you said, he's leading the team in assists. And they don't have a point guard really on Minnesota. So if he can be that point forward, this is the vision Chris Finch had when he stuck up for Randall all this time, man. And he's been awesome.
You nailed every part of that.
Mhm.
This is the vision that Chris Finch envisioned on Julius Randle.
Yeah.
And I think you covered it perfectly in the beginning because the biggest theme for why I think Randle is playing this well, it's the comfort that he has on this team. We saw the last couple of years, he was still productive in New York, but it was a little bit shaky because clearly Jalen Brunson's ascension and then the team's pecking order became a big question. And then whether Julius Randle is the best fit next to Jalen Brunson, and New York Knicks fans tough on him in the playoffs, even though he was injured in a lot of playoffs. So he definitely had some of that tension. I think he was carrying in New York. And then he gets traded to Minnesota last second, 3 days before training camp. And then he has to adjust in real time, legitimately in real time. And he was supposed to be a scorer, then he needed to be a passer, and it was a new team. And it was a lot. And I was tough on him. I was too tough on him last year because he did deserve grace. But now we are seeing a Julius Randle after being stamped on this basketball team, going deep in the Western Conference playoffs, winning like 80% of the final 30 games of last year's regular season with Julius Randle on the court. And now we're seeing a new Julius Randle. He's got the bag. He's confident. He is calm. He knows he's where his feet are. And now he's looking like all NBA Randle that the Knicks got early on when he was the guy. And I think that's what's exciting because I do believe this Julius Randle, this all-star fringe all NBA Julius Randle, it is potentially sustainable because it's not about talent with him. He's literally if Zach Randolph and Carmelo Anthony had
Hmm.
a baby. But
Hmm.
it's the fact that he's in a role where he's comfortable, where he's needed and appreciated. And I think that's made all the difference for why he's played so well. And like you said, he's not only scoring when the team needs him to, but he starts yesterday's game and a little bit of a slow start, missing some shots. Then he allows his playmaking to get himself into the game, and he still ends up 6 for 12, and he gets a triple double. We're just seeing a Julius Randle, like you're saying, who's incredibly malleable and somebody who's next to Anthony Edwards, almost irreplaceable on this team.
Yeah, he's stamping himself into the roster like permanently right now, and that's something that wasn't there like last year when you look at the NBA trade deadline. There's rumors of everything, and I think if he was moved at that point, people would have been okay with it. This is completely different now. so far this season, he's been, like you said, just fit right in. He's what this team needs right now without a point guard. And like you talked about with New York, I think, with Jalen Brunson, his ascension, like Randall was the guy, and he wasn't necessarily okay with how it all went down. I don't think. I'm sure he gets along with Jalen fine, but there's a difference between like really understanding like your place in the pecking order and understanding when a player is so special that you're going to move out of the way for him. I think when he came to Minnesota, I think guys love to play with Anthony Edwards. They just do. As we know, everyone loves him. The kid is special. And I think these veterans, the OGs, the LeBrons, KD, Julius, these guys see how special Anthony Edwards is. When they get in the gym with him, they're amazed. I mean, this is those kind of generational talents that you're going to move out of the way. You're going to say, well, what can I do? Because this kid is so special. I can win a title. I don't know if he saw that with a guy like Jalen Brunson. Not that Brunson's not an amazing player. It's just, I feel like Ant's just so, you know what I mean? Like he has that wow factor where even the veterans are like, oh, this kid is going to be something. Like Mike Conley has extended his career and wanted to sign back here. Mike stays here because he sees Anthony Edwards. Rudy's taking a pay cut. Like those things really matter. And I think Julius touched on being a little bit depressed with the Knicks towards the end. I think he said like was so depressed, didn't want to leave his place, was smoking marijuana more, and it was just so sad. And now I think he said he found the joy back coming to Minnesota. And I think when you're playing with a guy like Anthony Edwards, who you hear Nasrid and Jaden talk about, install that confidence, that swag back in with them. They feel like they can do anything with them on the court. I'm sure Randall feels the same exact way. And now you're seeing Julius Randle just be the true NBA veteran, let the game come to him. And he knows that it's okay. I can be this. I'll let the game come to me. We're going to be okay. And we'll talk about him in a second. But the guy who's ascending right next to him, who's making it that, possible for him, Jaden McDaniels, he's been amazing too.
Heck yeah, and we will talk about Jaden McDaniels. And I do believe that the Anthony Edwards factor definitely plays a big role because there was no doubt since when Julius Randle came in that Ant was the identity of the basketball team. The New
Mhm.
York Knicks, it was Julius Randle's team. Jalen Brunson comes in, and I'm sure Julius to this day doesn't think Jalen Brunson's better than him. So I'm sure even if
Yeah.
people disagree with that, I'm sure he feels like he kind of got screwed over a little bit. Like you're giving this small 6 foot
Yeah.
guard second round pick an opportunity over me, and Randall was still playing well there, but I can imagine. But then he goes to Minnesota, kind of like what Cat did in New York with Brunson too. He goes to a team where the identity was set. He wasn't overtaking Edwards like how Cat
Mm,
wasn't overtaking Brunson. And Ant has such a good way of massaging people into their roles, just
mhm.
culturally, making players feel appreciated in their role. And if anything, and we'll talk about Jaden in a second, but and so good at I need you to do more because you can be more. It isn't my ego's so big, go behind me. He's trying to rise you with him. And I think that's such a great skill that Edwards has. And even though Randall is the guy right now at this point of the year and he's played like it, my worry about him with Ant coming back is very minimal because I don't think Randall has an issue acclimating to such a transition when it's a player like Anthony Edwards. I think that's a perfect take on your end.
hmm hmm Yeah, and even if his scoring goes down and he goes to 18, 19 points a game, let's say, but he's getting those assists, those rebounds every night. He's on triple double watch. I mean, that's the kind of Randall that's going to make this team win. And without a point guard, when Anthony Edwards comes back, I expect his assist numbers to actually increase. They're at like five. What are they? 5.6, 5.2 right
Yeah,
now, or something like that.
just under
I
six.
think they're going to go up to 6.57 assists a game when Anthony Edwards comes back. Maybe even creep towards the 8 mark. I think Ant's that special of a talent, and he's going to obviously help tremendously. And he breaks down the defenses. So there's just so many different things they can do. I think Ant getting hurt sometimes when players get hurt and they sit out, like just like last year, like we talked about, it sometimes is a blessing on certain things because it can now you can see what happens. Players get a chance to play, and then you see what can happen when they come back. And I think the way that Randall's played, the way that Jaden's played, these guys, that this with Anthony Edwards playing how we know Ant's going to play, that's a really, really good team in the Western Conference. If they can get their defense to even be like middle of the pack, it doesn't have to come all the way back in the top 10 like the last couple of years. You're looking at an elite offense with a middle of the pack defense. That's really, really dangerous in the West. And now you're adding multiple guys, not just Anthony Edwards, that could potentially get their buckets. That's big time, especially when you're closing games where the Timberwolves have struggled before. All these guys can score offensively in the clutch.
And that's a big deal. And I don't want to make this like a Randall versus Cat thing. We'll talk more about that after the Knicks
Mhm.
game when they do face off against each other. But I will say a huge benefit of the Randall archetype is that he is a creator, right? Like a player like
Mm.
Cat was an incredible offensive player, but he was more of a finisher and connector, I would say, than he was a primary on-ball guy. And Randall's an on-ball player. So when an Anthony Edwards gets hurt, you're able to throw Randall in that primary creator role. And his comfort is very high level in those situations, especially when you're asking him to take care of Charlotte, take care of Brooklyn. He can do that. I mean, when you look at the offenses here, Minnesota's offense is over 20 points better with Julius Randle on the basketball court. Over 20 points better. So I think Randle at this point, when you don't have an Anthony Edwards, you just feel better about the team staying afloat, at least offensively, because he has those creator playmaking chops and he can kind of operate as a point guard when you need him to, like yesterday, right? And I think we'll talk about Donte later, but I think Donte is a huge beneficiary of somebody like Randall leading the offense because Randall's so good at getting outside shooters the ball where they need it when he's putting pressure on the rim. I think Donte benefits from that. And the offense is just smooth. It's an easy transition. Having multiple creators in the Western Conference right now, it's incredibly critical. And I'm just going to ask you this right now. How
Mhm.
confident are you 1 to 10 if this team just figures it all out again? Okay. It's so early in the season. We don't know anything. But assuming this team figures it out and they are in the same conversations as they've been the last couple of years, are you confident 1 to 10 that Julius Randle can legitimately be a number two that rivals against all the other number twos in the West?
Yes, but it depends more on Anthony Edwards than it does Julius Randle to me. And why I say that is because I think Ant, without a point guard and without a guy who can bring the ball down the court and really get downhill, you need Ant to do that. And I think Randall playing the way he is, he's amazing. So, but I think that really is more the key than I would say putting the pressure on Randall to be that. I don't expect Randall to bring the ball down the court. I think if he does that in the playoffs, he's going to get eaten alive. And so I
Mhm.
need Ant to step up, be what Ant is. I think he truly can be that. And everyone, we see it in their age 24 season. Anthony Edwards is going to his age 24 season. We see players take that SGA leap, right? They take the Jason Tatums, the Kobe's, all these leaps. I think Ant is poised to do that, and that's why I'm more of a believer in like Julius Randle. And I will say this too, like he needs to add more, I think, on the defensive end right now because
Yeah.
on the defensive end, Randle has not been good. He needs last year. I felt like I started seeing Randle become like putting effort and becoming like a solid defender. Um, I think Randle needs to get back to that.
Mhm.
Right now, he might be just expanding too much on the offensive end for that, but he needs to kind of figure that out, balance it all out. And but yeah, I mean, there's a lot you can do with this team. If you got two guys playing at that kind of level, I mean, they were missing that. They were missing a guy who can you can throw the ball to down in the post, and he's going to go get his against anybody. And if he plays aggressive, if he plays like that, I don't know what you do when you're defending Minnesota because that's what Minnesota missed against OKC.
I think Jace Frederick articulated it really well with Randall as well because he said around
Mhm.
26 teams in the NBA, Julius Randle can kind of get whatever he wants because 26 or so teams can't really handle the creation space that comes from his bumps and his physicality,
Mhm.
especially when he's hitting jumpers. So I think what you're saying is true. The defensive end, the entire team needs to get better on that. Just it needs to be better if they want to rival anybody in the Western Conference. But just specifically offense, I do agree that Anthony Edwards, his ball handling is critical, obviously. Like Randle needs to be the number two. But then there's also another element, and I think it's more of a team conversation.
Mhm,
But what made Randle struggle in the Western Conference last year, I thought, was OKC can handle his physicality, but then
mhm,
also while Randle's figuring that out, he and Ant kind of had to be the guys with the ball in their hands because none of our guards can get the ball past half court. So I think another issue is going to be, can
mhm,
Minnesota have the ball handling quality where
mhm,
they could put some weight off of Ant and Randall? And I think
mhm,
that answer has not been great yet. Of course, we'll transition to Jaden in a minute, but Jaden, I think, is a good step in that direction. We need to see more from Rob. He's very up and
mhm,
down.
mhm.
Conley, I think we know what we're getting from Conley. He's played well the last couple of games, but too much to expect in the playoffs. And Dante's an off ball player. So I think that's where I'm kind of like, yes, Randall can be a number two, but I think the roster construction needs to continue refining itself on a creation standpoint for that to happen.
I agree with that. I think what you're learning right now too is like you said, Jay or Dante is he's an off-ball player. I think that's like a main takeaway. What I just took is Dante got thrown into the starting point guard role in night one, and we're all excited for it. I still think he has like an upside to be an okay, you know, player at that level. I just don't know if that's his comfort position. And now that he's playing off ball, I think that's where he's thrived, which we'll get into for sure as well in a little bit here. But yeah, with Rob, you really need Rob to hit. Like you need it so bad. Minnesota needs ball handlers. They need it so bad. And if they can get ball handlers against OKC, against these teams like Portland earlier in the year when they're pressing them 94 feet, and Indiana, and just there's a lot of players. There's a lot of teams. Like the Spurs are going to be tough. I'm imagining that matchup in the head. There's a lot of teams where they're going to come at Minnesota, and they got to figure it out because their ball handling right now it's definitely it's a concern, and not having like an elite ball handler. It's definitely it's worrisome. So we'll kind of see where it goes from there.
Let's talk about one of those potential solutions as well.
Uh-huh.
Jaden McDaniels, man, we're here. We're
You're
all
here.
the way here
We're
with
here.
Jaden. Over 18 and a half points a game, over 52% from the field, 46% from three. The comfort to me just looks so enticing. The
Mm,
handle's tight. He knows where his spots are this year, unlike we've ever seen. The jumper looks crisp. I love what I'm seeing from Jaden McDaniels, man. Evan, what are you seeing from him?
mm. He's he's shooting 46% from three as well. Like he's doing everything. He's playing like an all-star. You're seeing a leap of a player taking a star leap. And a lot of players, again, like we talked about earlier in this episode, they do it around this time, right? This is when players take these leaps notoriously in the NBA. I didn't see this big of a leap coming this year. I saw hints of it. I think when you saw the way Jaden played 2 years ago in the Western Conference against the Dallas Mavericks, that was really intriguing. Like, whoa, like this is what we could be getting. This is amazing. Then you see it last year in the playoffs and the last part of the season when Jaden went up to about 18 points a game and 9 rebounds or 10 rebounds. You saw this Jaden McDaniels and all this coming to a table. If you can get a guy who's averaging 20 points a game, 18, 20 points a game, but he's playing all NBA defense, you have a star level player, especially in his role. And I mean, that's a player that might make the all-star team. Just we've seen it over the years with guys that are that good of a defender and they come in and make those offensive impacts. I think he would still have to up it a little bit more, but still, like it's amazing to see him doing what he's doing. I think Jaden's been so fun because previously to these years, you could see his handle kind of developing, but I think like it's off the charts, taking a new level. He's becoming a good ball handler now. He can do it all. He can put it behind the back. He can go between the legs. Anything you really want. He can drive left. He can drive right. Something I didn't see. And he's like I've noticed more physical. He's always been physical on the defensive end, but on the offensive end, like he's going into players, he's initiating contact, and he has completely mastered that like slow down step that like Anthony Edwards does, the little euro, and then you kind of like stutter step, slow it down. Him, Nas, and Ant. I don't know if you've noticed that they all three do it, and so it's one of those things that like one guy learns it on the team, they all start learning it, but those are elite moves. It's just he's been so fun to watch, and his explosion is something that, again, if Jaden's hitting, Julius is hitting, when Ant comes back, like you have players that can spread the floor. Jaden can hit the mid range, which I think Minnesota needed against Oklahoma City. Like they need guys who can hit in the mid range. Now you're getting Anthony Edwards, who talks about being able to hit the mid range. Now you're getting Jaden, who can obviously bread and butter, as we know, in the mid range. Julius has that mid range shot that he kind of does that fade away from the free throw line. These are things Minnesota needs, and I'm just so happy for Jaden. I think he's just been an incredible player. He needs to stop fouling as much because we need him so bad. Last game or last night, you saw he had foul trouble. Otherwise, he scores, I don't know, 23, 24 points in last night's game. But man, in the last 4 games, Jaden's been averaging 22 points a game. He's awesome.
Yeah, and quickly to the foul trouble point, just I think that's why we talked earlier. More point of attack defensive help this team desperately needs because
Hmm.
Jaden McDaniels is going to be the guy who they throw up there, which is understandable, very good at it, but he's also 7 feet playing against smaller guards. He's going to get into foul trouble, and that's going to hinder what he does in offense. So being able to find that balance between when Jaden attacks in the perimeter, roams around the paint, minimize the fouls, maximize his size, his rebounding around the paint, and also just offensive flexibility to do what he's been doing. I think we're seeing a Jaden McDaniels for the very first time in his career. His identity is beyond being a role player. I think
Yeah,
the
it's a good
first
point.
5 years, the first 5 years, he's always just been asked defend really hard, stand in the corner, kind of space the floor, maybe need some more off-ball movement from you. It's never been, Jaden, we need you to score, man. We need you to create. And I think we saw a little bit of that in January last year. That was
Hmm.
really important. And this year, it feels like it's seasoned. Like we have samples that Jaden can be that, which last year was. Now it's like we expect that from you.
Hmm.
We should always expect you to take double digit shots. You should always be taking around 14 shots, honestly, and just get to your spots. Jaden, not only has he gotten better as a basketball player, I think his handle looks better. And like you were
Hmm.
saying, I think his physicality, his intentionality inside 18 feet, it's next level. It's like he kind of has figured out what he's good at. And he's never going to be the strongest guy, but he's always going to have great touch. He's always going to be taller than you. And he's always has incredible balance. And we're seeing him manipulate that balance, bumping off of people, little 12-foot fadeaway or a little floater or, the stop euro off the glass. We've seen that a lot. It's like Jaden knows now in his head, I'm supposed to create, but also I know my 4 spots that I can almost always get to. And
Mm.
we're seeing that right now. And I think a part of this, if there's going to be a positive about the Ant injury, even though he had 18 his first game, I didn't see this aggression as a creator. And I think the big question now is when Jaden, because this is real in my opinion, how to make sure he maintains that aggression and gets to his spots the way he has while Anthony Edwards is on the court. And because Anthony Edwards has been out, now we just know Jaden McDaniels can do this. So now the big question is how can they reintegrate that once everybody's healthy?
Hmm. And right now, he only's averaging 4 rebounds a game, 2 assists. So those numbers, they got to go up when Anthony Edwards comes back. Obviously, he won't be dependent on as much on the offensive end, and so I hopefully get him to settle around what he was doing at the end of last year, which is like 18 a game again, getting you 8 or 9 rebounds. That's the kind of Jaden that I think would be super helpful to this team. But continue that aggression. He looks quicker too. Like he's always been pretty fast, but like he's taken another leap. And like this is the leap I wish Rob, I know it's like years away or it's just not gonna happen, but I wish Rob could get where it's like Jaden has all this oozing talent and he would sometimes get in his head and he didn't know what he was necessarily good at, or people might even tell you like, hey, you're really good at these things, do those things, just keep doing those things. No one can stop you because you're so special at those things. I think they're similar in that way in scoring and certain abilities, and Jaden no one can stop him. He's figured that out when he drives. Anytime he's been one-on-one right now, I just see him instantly driving it in. Like that's insane aggression that I've never seen from McDaniels. Like I'm going to score on you one-on-one. I'm gonna drive in. You can't stop me. I'm so fast. I'm gonna put my body into a little bit, and then I'm just gonna put my long arm around you and literally lay it up off the glass. And this touch has been amazing. He keeps doing that move over and over this year. I mean, how many times before has Jaden drove to the rim unless it's pretty much a wide open line? He just doesn't do that in the other
Yeah.
years.
It's
This year he's
different.
can, yeah, and he looks at a defender in front of him, and there was an interview yesterday after the game on Peacock that the guys had with him on there, and they said, he basically, Jaden said, like, Anthony Edwards got in my ear last year in the playoffs and was like, we want you to go be, we don't want you to be Jaden McDaniels. I've known you since high school, Jaden. I want you to be J Mac, which is like what they used to call him back then. And for those who don't know, Jaden McDaniels was a beast in high school, like a monster, and was scoring at will. No one could stop him. And like that's what they want Jaden to be. Go out there and be what we know you are. We've all known and we've all seen you play that way. Go do it. And so getting the green light, getting the confidence in him, he talked about it in the interview, how Ant gives him that confidence. Now having the coaching staff believe in him, I think, and then him seeing the results, I think you just never know when it's going to click in a player's head, but it is clicked with Jaden McDaniels. He knows what he is, he knows what he's good at, and he knows that no one can stop him when he goes to his spots. And that's what I like about him.
I just love how you reference that specific story because it was Jaden
Mhm.
McDaniels talking to Jamal Crawford, and
Mhm.
it just really made me
Yeah.
think how important it is to have a young player with the right ears around him, right?
Mhm.
The right people
Mhm.
in his ear. That was backwards.
Seattle guys. Mhm.
All the Seattle guys, and then you have Anthony Edwards, who is so good at just boosting your confidence, playing off of him. And then he's training with Kawhi in the summer.
Oh yeah, that's true
So
as well.
so
They're
Jaden has
similar in
had
ways. Mhm.
a lot of different personalities who are aggressive in their own way in his ear, and I think it's just the identity shift. It's like if a really smart person in high school just leans into his brain or her brain, and then all of a sudden becomes, like, super good looking after high school, and then it takes, like, 3 years to be like, "Wait, I'm hot. I'm hot too." That's what Jaden
Yeah.
McDaniels is going through. It's like, "Wait, I'm not just this cool defender role player. I got star talent." So,
Mhm.
seeing this version of Jaden, I think is really exciting. The fact that he's buying into it and also just he's gotten better as a player. He's gotten better, and this version of Jaden is real, and I'm gonna frame this question to you, okay, before we transition
Mhm.
to Donte DiVincenzo.
Yep.
Does Minnesota have a legitimate big 3 in Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, and Jaden McDaniels?
The answer right now is yes. It's so early in the season that like I can't say if it's going to be like this for the whole year. But right now, they have a legitimate big three. It's insane to see it. You've got an all world class defender. You've got a playmaker, big or mini big, you could say, like a power forward. And then you have an elite guard who can do so much. They really have like a recipe for something very, very special. We'll see when Ant comes back again. It's so early, but yes, they have something legit there. And we'll see if JD could continue to be this way. The way he's playing, the way the confidence is, like I think I'm confident it's going to stay because I have never seen him play like this. I've gone to a lot of games in person. I've never seen him move the way he has. I've attended 2 of the home games this year, and including the home opener. And man, it's just in person. I just the first thing I said to the person next to me was like, I had not seen that ever, pretty much. Like that is different. Like, whoa. And I spend a lot of the game just being like that to Jaden McDaniels, specifically over the game. I was that impressed by Jaden McDaniels. Just completely, we all knew he had it in him, but it's just great to see it. And now what it does too is it opens up avenues to be flexible in case Minnesota decides to go out and make a trade or move a piece in the future.
Mhm.
Gives you that flexibility because before you're kind of like, do we move Jaden? Do we move Nas in a piece to go get a? I'm not saying they're going to do this. But I'm just saying, like, hypothetically, if you're ever going to have to move a young talent to get an elite talent, which you have to do in this league, we all know that you have to give to get. Now it makes the decision a lot more clear. I think, of being like, we're okay with moving on from like a Nas Reed, because you're seeing like the way Jaden's playing is he's so much more valuable because he's a two-way talent, two-way
Mhm.
star. And we love Nas Reed, but it's just making like Nas Reed more expendable. It's making a guy like Rudy Gobert more expendable too. Like in the future, again, we're not saying this is going to happen. Everybody who's going to, rush to the comments or whatever. But I'm just saying, Jaden looks right now like his contract he signed is going to be a bargain and one of the best contracts in the NBA. He's playing just amazing.
And I think the pecking order of this team has definitely been reframed or just reaffirmed. I posted the other day on Twitter and I said, "Here are my trade tiers. Over
Hmm.
my dead body, Anthony Edwards. Over my critical condition body, Jaden McDaniels. Jaden is an ant, but he's the next thing. Like, I would have a tough time giving up that dude in a trade right now. I would have a really tough time. And a guy like Nas, like you're saying, or Rudy, they're clearly behind Jaden in the pecking order. If you ask people in January this year, Nas and Rudy might have been ahead of Jaden in the pecking order. But I think even with how good Julius Randle's playing, I think Jaden is very clearly the second guy
Yep,
here
number two.
as an asset. And
Hmm.
between those three, I kind of think until we get a lot more answers from Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham, they kind of need to be a big three for this team to win a lot of games, especially if they're going to be offensive dependent because the bench hasn't been as reliable as I've wanted yet. Nas is playing better, but you've moved Dante's production to the starting lineup, and then you move Conley off the bench, and Shannon has been disappointing. There's no other way to frame it. Hopefully
Hmm.
that changes. Rob's been up and down, so they kind of need to be a big three, I think, even when Ant's back to really be in that top tier of the West.
Mm. No, I agree. And Jaden, like, he needs to, yeah, he's got to continue to play the way he's got to continue to play. He's got to have that confidence still and still with him. And, we'll see what Minnesota kind of does here coming up. I think when Ant comes back, I don't have any worries that anything's going to go away. I think those two are just such great friends. If anything, Ant's going to be more in his ear, and it's just going to get more physical, more fun. And then you're adding another perimeter defender next to Jaden McDaniels, which taking the pressure off where he doesn't have to defend as much because Anthony Edwards can also guard in the perimeter some of the game. Um, Jaden's biggest thing that will stop them from being a big three or from anything with this team is going to be Jaden's following issues. If he can get that under control, I don't think there's anything stopping him. I think he's that good. I think it's here to stay. The only thing that's going to get in McDaniel's way to me is McDaniel's. That's it.
I think you're absolutely right, and that's going to be
Mhm.
fun to navigate as the year goes on, especially if they need McDaniels to be out in the perimeter as much as possible,
Mhm.
how he navigates that foul trouble
But he's
because
leading the team with blocks. I just want to point that out to everyone.
he
Jaden
is.
McDaniel's leading the team with blocks.
I'm not sure where he stands in the league right now, but as of a couple games ago, he was like second in the league in blocks. So
Mhm.
he's protecting the rim too, man. He's been everywhere, but
Mm.
that's going to be something to watch out for. And let's talk about Donte DiVincenzo as well, man, because
Yeah.
he, as a starter, I think that was a surprise to start the year that Finch actually pulled the plug on Conley starting, put Donte in there, and it was a little slow to start, some ups and downs, but the last couple of games might be the face mask. I'm not sure. But Dante's been balling out, man. Just had 25, 9, and 5. He had 18 against
Mm.
Charlotte. He's averaging over 15, 4 assists a game. Very comparable to New York Knicks Dante, the production he's putting up. So when you're looking at Dante, man, how are you feeling about him?
Well, first of all, he had no turnovers last night. I just want to point that out to everyone out here. 25 points, zero turnovers, 5 assists, 9 rebounds, 1 block. Just played like the New York Knicks Dante that we saw. And like, and like we talked about earlier, man, Julius got here and kind of head spinning, couldn't even get his feet in the ground right before training camp. And Dante's with him. And the two of them are showing you the New York Knicks versions of them and together. And it's been so fun in the early part of the season. Yes, he struggled a little bit in the beginning games, but he was just thrown into the starting lineup. And the guys had talked about that. Like, I think they had some interviews with Conley where he was like, I don't even know right now. Like, I'm just shocked. I'm going to help out the team. But I think even Mike Conley and the team, it seems like thought Mike Conley was going to be the starting point guard. So I'm guessing even Donte was like, "Oh, I'm starting. Like, I'm for it, but like, you know what I mean?"
Mhm.
It's just one of those things. Like, you don't have your flow. Your team's used to their pregame routines. Anything in life, you have your flow, right? You brush your teeth or at night. You have things at a certain time. And your body's used to things. So when the team's used to Mike Conley and they've practiced like it's Mike Conley and this is going to be Mike Conley and it's Donte, it just takes a little bit. But what you're seeing is a guy who is a microwave scorer, can score, has probably the prettiest 3-point shot on the team, other than Anthony Edwards, has a quick release. And I just think he's a dog, man. I mean, he's coming out there and he's playing with a broken nose. You saw it last game. He comes back in, it's sideways on the screen. Not many guys would come out there and do that. He plays great with the mask on. He's been amazing. He's shooting over 40% from three this year as well. And I think when you're seeing the off-ball role of Donte, that's what Minnesota needs. I'm not sure, again, when Ant comes back, like ideally now, I'm just wondering if you just run Anthony Edwards at the point guard position, have Donte kind of run off. I feel like that might be the best thing. I don't know if that's going to happen. I doubt it. It probably goes back to Donte being the starter. But I just think like Dante's played so well, but he's played next to Mike, and they've been in the starting lineup since Ant's been out. And I think just Donte not being that main guy, it's been really beneficial for Donte. He's had it in him this whole time. A lot of Minnesota fans just didn't see it last year. I've always believed in Donte. I think he's a player that when Ant comes back, when all these guys come back, he can really make a difference. If he comes off the bench too, let's say in the future, and he is playing next to a guy like Mike Conley or someone like that, like I just think Donte is going to thrive at any role with his team as long as you don't put him as a primary creator. When people put pressure on him, he gets a little rattled. He turns the ball over when he's crossing half court. But overall, I'm so impressed with Donte. He's been awesome.
I think the fact that he's starting is a big deal too, because
It's a
you're
big deal to him.
mentioning it.
He cares.
He cares. Yeah, he definitely cares. And you're mentioning, right, Mike Conley or starting over Mike, maybe the team kind of mentally preparing for that. Like, how does that affect
Hmm.
me? But I do think in a lot of ways, it does make life for Donte and the starters easier because kind of like what Julius Randle was going through last year, I think people are trying to figure out what Donte is on this team.
Hmm.
He was a point guard most of last year, and I don't think he's a point guard. So that I think kind of spooked his momentum in a lot of ways because now he's making more decisions with the ball. People are pressuring him, and he's not really like doing what he does best, which is off the catch, in the flow, quick decisions. It's organizing, and I'm not sure that's what he is. But you put Donte DiVincenzo in the starting lineup. Sure, I think maybe there's a little bit of kind of that validation, maybe, but I think it's more of Donte is playing off the gravity of good creators. Even with Mike
Hmm.
Conley starting,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think Conley is good at finding Donte because he's a smart player. But I also think a lot of it is we're focused on Randle, we're focused on
Hmm.
McDaniels. Donte kind of just stay in motion. Randle will find you. Randle's really good at finding Donte where he
Hmm.
needs it. I mean, we saw a lot of assists the last
Good
couple
point.
games. Randle, Donte, three. Randle, Donte, three. When
Hmm.
he gets the ball and it's in the flow and there's no indecision there, it's just I'm either going to shoot it or I'm going to attack the closeout and make a connective read. Donte, that's the best version of him. And he could have
Hmm.
done that off of Brunson and Randall in New York. And now in Minnesota, he's not a point guard right now. He can just play off of star creators. And McDaniels is also becoming that. So for me, I think the big difference of him starting is the game simplifies for him because he gets elevated by playing with better players. And when Anthony Edwards comes back, I also think his production, when you compare it to New York, right, he's playing even better right now. I think that's going to maintain itself just off the fact that there's only going to be more attention away from him. And as long as Ant is deliberate as a playmaker, finding Donte, I know Randall will be, then I think he'll be just fine because he's going to find open looks. He'll benefit off the gravity of Ant and Randall, and then even McDaniels. And then the game simplified for him. And then boom, he's taking 12 threes a game. I think we're seeing Donte in the role that he's meant to play in. It's not about being a starter to me. It's about playing off of high
Hmm.
level creators. And the bench last year lacked that, which I think is part of why he had ups and downs. But then when he gets in the starting lineup, it's like, holy crap, this is a great player because he's playing what he needs to be. So I think this is the perfect role for Donte.
I feel like what you just said was like my personal favorite thing of the whole episode. The analysts on what Dante has been doing, why he's been so successful, and I think you're right. Like that, when I think about everything you just said, I can't agree more. Like he's like how important Malik Beasley was to the Timberwolves a few years back, and how he was to the Pistons last year. Malik Beasley, it's like invaluable, and that skill is invaluable for a team. A guy who can shoot the three at such a high clip with so many shots per game, and it changes the whole complexion of the team because the floor. I mean, if Dante keeps doing this, it everything for Minnesota. This is why they're going to be in the top 10 offensively for the rest of the season because teams can't guard you. Like they have to close out. They have to guard Dante. He's always a threat. He's always moving. He's pulling guys around. He can put the ball in the paint. He's not doing too much. And you have all these creators. I mean, Ant's a great shooter from three. We all know this, right? He's not back yet. Then you got Randle, who's shooting over 40%. Dante right now shooting over 40%. Jaden's shooting over 40%. We see a pattern. These guys are all like interchangeable where they can run, go out to the 3-point line, go in, cut, run, up, and goes in. You can see it. Ball's going to go out. Oh, nope. Julius goes down. Ball goes out. Teams can't play these guys, and it can create so many mismatches. And you need that with Rudy Gobert on the floor because they know Gobert is not a scorer. When you got all these other guys, what you're going to create is you're going to open up lob threats for Rudy Gobert because there's going to be closeouts, and teams are worried about everybody. And now before they would like lay off of Jaden, they would lay off of like Gobert points. They can't do that anymore. And so you're just creating this havoc where, and again, in the West, these electric teams that go on these big runs, Dante's been incredible. And then he's another guy who can, like you saw the other night with 25 points, he can score in a hurry. He had like 8 points in a quarter in like a few minutes. He heats up, he can just go off. And when you have different players on a team that can win a game potentially for you every single night, it's huge because some nights players just aren't going to have it, might not take it serious. But when you have different guys who all have the ability to go off, I think that's huge for Minnesota. I wish his defense right now, I think, needs to improve.
Yeah, everybody, man.
But that's everybody.
Yeah.
And that's really everybody. But yeah, we'll see when everybody comes back how it is. But I think keeping him in the starting lineup, it's really key. He really cares. And I know people are watching and are like, you make all this money, and yeah, I agree with you, right? They make all this money, like what they're a team player. This is a team game, but that's just how certain people are. And Dante cares a lot. I think he is a team player. I really do believe that. But I really think he's definitely like affected by not being a starter. He really, really, really cares about that. That validation is very important to certain people. Some people, it's just human nature, right? And I think Dante being in that starting lineup, it gives him like that New York Dante back. He feels it. He gets to walk into Target Center in those sweet black jerseys and the old retro court. Like those things matter to Dante, and that's why I think he came back with the broken nose and everything. Like he's locked in. Like he feels like he's part of this. He's a starter. This is my team. This is our team. Like this is big. This is big for the Wolves.
He's definitely one of those emotional players in a good way where
Mm-hmm.
he feels the fire and he wants to ride the wave, right? He wants to just feel the energy of being a part of winning basketball. And I think what people are saying, like he likes being a starter, I think it's more about that is just the most concrete, evident validation that he is in this thing. I mean, people
Mm-hmm.
forget,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where I kind of disagree when people say that it's because he's a starter. I mean, Dante was a Final Four MVP playing off the bench. Dante
Mm-hmm.
was the best sixth man in college basketball. So I think it's more about one, I think the emotional, kind of like Randall, he's cemented on the squad, but also, like, I think on a more X's and O's standpoint, the fact that he is able to just do what he does well and doesn't need to have that multi-dimensional decision making with the ball in his hands, and he just can kind of play the game in the flow. That's where he's best, and that's exactly how Chris Finch wants to play basketball. I think when you saw Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert start, there's a certain point in time when the young players needed their training wheels, and Mike Conley was that. But then if he felt good enough about the young players now, because they're not young players anymore,
Yep.
now it's which players play the way Chris Finch wants you to play. And between Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert, there just isn't going to be enough pace in ball movement, especially when Randle is there. Sure, Conley's a good decision maker, but you're not going to play fast when you have Conley, Randle, and Gobert on the floor. But when you flip it and you have Ant, Jaden, and Donte, that makes a big difference. And this team is still bottom 10 in pace right now. That needs to change when the team comes back fully healthy. I think it'll be a very big point of emphasis. Like, we need to get out in the flow more. And I think early on, that's where a lot of turnovers have come from. The attempt to play faster, especially the first game against Portland. But I think this version of this team, the best version is Donte starting, because he just he's the spitting image of the type of player Chris Finch wants to be in the rotation next to your stars. Play out the ball, space the floor, play fast, play intense, play emotional. That's Donte. And he is an incredible fit, like Randall has been.
hmm you're right. He's emotional, and if they need that, I think they need more of that with this team sometimes. And when you have these slow nights, you're playing Charlotte, you're playing in Utah, you're playing on the road in Washington. They're going to need players who are just they're like mad animals out there all the time, just running around. And in these big, intense games, they're going to get up in guys' chests. They might get a technical. They might, as we saw in the Detroit game last year, they're going to lock a guy up, grab him by the head, and go at him, like not take crap. And I think the players feed off that. He's been that kind of a player going back to the Knicks. And once you get into a playoff matchup where the series is going to get tight, he wasn't healthy last year, so I don't think he could be that. But if you get that kind of Donte, you need that competitive edge again, someone that can stir the pot, not going to back down. And now that you have guys, I think Anthony Edwards too. I think their relationship, Donte and Ant, like it's underrated. Like, and
Yeah.
notice every time they're around each other, they have a specific handshake that they do, and they kind of like shoot a bow behind their back, but they feed off each other, Ant and Donte. And so I think like that relationship is something fans will get to see this year develop more than we saw last year, or you'll notice it more. Watch those two and how they feed off each other and look at each other after shots, and just like just notice that when Anthony Edwards comes back, because Dante's in the starting lineup for a reason. Like he's a starter in the sense, and doesn't matter for our team or other teams. Like I think he's a starting level player, and man, I'm just excited to see the team come back. I'm excited to see the Knicks next game, and here we are.
Heck yeah, man. And we're going to see that Timberwolves Knicks game coming up Wednesday. And man, we could talk hours and hours and hours about Randall, Donte, and Jaden. I want to briefly close out the show covering one little small subject that we can talk about a few minutes. A
Okay.
lot of drama in Memphis, once considered Minnesota's
Yep.
biggest rival really early in the Ant and Ja tenure. Ja's kind of gone the other direction down, Ant's gone up. And now it looks like it might be the end in Memphis with John Morant. I mean, the suspensions, the his recent interview, he talks about how he's lost his joy for basketball.
hmm
And it doesn't look good in Memphis. It looks like it's the beginning of the end. And a lot of Timberwolves fans on NBA Twitter and even in some media circuits, they've talked about, what if John Morant gets paired with Anthony Edwards? And I think there's some division on whether you would take Ja or not right now, because he's polarizing. So, Evan, what do you think about the idea of Minnesota being in the Ja sweepstakes if and when that happens?
That's a tough one because that stuff is pretty serious. That Ja's been had issues with the gun stuff, with the on court making gestures, with the off court stuff. Besides the gun stuff, the attitude. There's been an issue with John Morant and players like that in football, like Stephon Diggs and Randy Moss at some points in his career. There's tons of guys, right? They have issues notoriously, and they follow them. Think of Jimmy Butler, follows them around. D'Angelo Russell sometimes had attitude issues, follows him around. I get nervous because sometimes it's like that. I will say this: the silver lining into it is Anthony Edwards and John Morant have a very tight relationship. Those two are really good friends, and if anybody can, tell Ja something and Ja will actually listen, not take it serious, and enjoy playing basketball with, I think it is a guy like Anthony Edwards. Um, I don't know if that would be, I would be open to that. I go back and forth with certain things. Like, yes, we need a point guard. So it's tantalizing because we know what John Morant was when he was a little bit younger. He was amazing. He was up there in the MVP voting, getting votes, and he was incredible, averaging like 25 a game, just electric, scoring at will, can get downhill and just do anything. And he can create for others, is doing that as well. Um, that's the part that's tantalizing is this team needs a point guard. They need a ball handler. And if Ja was playing at that level, like that's a team that I could see being a contender with that level of Ja Morant. I can see a world where if he was playing, gets back to playing how he was, doesn't, I guess, can learn from Anthony Edwards. They can keep him under control here. He finds his joy back. I can see a world where like Minnesota picks him up and they're probably the most fun team to watch in the league. They're running the floor. Their pace is electric. You got John Morant throwing lobs to Anthony Edwards. You got Anthony Edwards throwing lobs to John Morant because he can dunk. Like I can see this fun world, alternate universe where it's incredible. But if Ja were to come here, I would tell everybody, let's just say, Julius Randle doesn't make any sense to have, in my opinion, on the floor with John Morant. So then because they would just get in each other's way, and it just doesn't make any sense. Then it becomes, what do you do with Julius Randle? And that's where I'm just like, it just doesn't add up because you're probably not getting Randle. He's playing just amazing. I don't really know. That's really all I have to say about Ja. I think it's a cool thought. I don't know if it's realistic. And that's it. I don't know if Minnesota would want to deal with that. I don't know a lot of teams that would want to deal with that.
No, totally. And I would like to just say, everybody, there's not really much on the ground of Minnesota after Ja Morant. This is just
Mm-hmm.
a fun exercise about something that could be a conversation maybe in 3 to 6 months down the road. That's what this is. So
Uh-huh.
I agree with everything you said. I think to start on the positive front for people who would like Ja Morant, this team does need a point guard. This team could definitely use a point guard who plays in transition with his playmaking chops. All of that's true. What I would say, though, is I am so heavily against the idea of John Morant on the Timberwolves. If he ended up on the team, I would hope I'm wrong, and I would embrace him like every fan should. But when you look at the maintenance he goes through, you mentioned the intangible stuff, and I totally agree. But then also, he's not healthy a lot. He, ha-
Yeah.
he hasn't played 67 plus games ever in his career, 6, 7. Also, he's been regressing the last few years. Ever since
Mm-hmm.
that All NBA year in 21-22, every single year, it feels like we're seeing a slight regression. And this
Yep.
year is not any different. Very inefficient, really bad shooter. Like you said, probably not best fit with the spacing on this team. And I do want to make this clear to everybody. You can think John Morant's a great fit on the team, and I'm not going to fight you on that. He might be. I have a lot of questions there. Also, I don't like the philosophy. You know what? They really need a point guard. Let's just go get John Morant almost out of desperation, right? If I really need a girlfriend, it doesn't mean I'm dating the girl who's dated the entire football team. That's not happening, right? You need to be patient and wait for the right point guard to come into your life. And I'm not sure John Morant is. So I'm not the biggest proponent of John Morant. If Tim Connolly decided he was, I'm willing to listen. I'm not firmly shutting the door on it, but I'm not a fan of it.
I see a world where like if you get an elite point guard and it pans out, Minnesota can win the finals. That's just like I feel like it's so important to get that role for Anthony Edwards, but it has to be a point guard that can get downhill, can score and collapse the defense and take that pressure off of Anthony Edwards and just let him go be shooting guard he is. Um, I don't know who that is, but that is where the people who want John Morant here, I can see your point, which is like if John Morant were to hit and somehow be close to that All NBA player and stay healthy, you made a great point. He never stays healthy. He's always injured in the playoffs as well. Um, I can see it. Like I can genuinely see this like world where like that is where you're going for it. And I think if Minnesota went for that kind of a move, it's an all-in type of move. So you would see Minnesota put everything they have and just throw all their chips in because it doesn't make any sense to have John Morant here if you're not going to go for it. Um, he doesn't play defense. He can't really hit the three ball at all on a great level. If he's not getting downhill at will and scoring, he's it's just kind of it. And
Yeah.
it's tough. With Jaw's game, it's so physical and he's such a small frame that I think that's where you're seeing all this coming from is he's just it's hard, man. It's why he never stays healthy. That's so physical. It's why Derrick Rose didn't have a long or electric MVP career. Why these smaller guys, it's just too hard on their body. And so I worry about that with John Morant. There's going to be probably another guard available. So I don't know where that guard is. I don't know if it's this year at the trade deadline or if it's like next off season. But I think right now you just roll with the punches. It's I want it too, guys. Like we all want it. We all want to like run in there and just be like, let's go. Like let's make this big trade and let's do it all. This is so exciting. Like I'm tired of being in the West Finals. We've done it 2 years in a row, and I get that. But you got to remember how hard it is to get to the West Finals, how hard it is to get to the playoffs continuously year after year, and then to have guys like Jaden, Nas, Ant who are going into the primes of their careers, and they're just starting it. Like Anthony Edwards isn't even starting it yet. Nas is starting it right now. He's entered it. Jaden's like goes into it, I think, starting probably next year. And Ant's still 2 years away from going to his prime, 2, 3 years away. So you have time where you don't have to rush. You don't have to make a big decision. And my gut tells me if Minnesota's patient, that in the next 2 years, we'll say 2 to 3 years, somewhere in that with all the trade deadlines, with all of the different off seasons, there will be a star available that you can put all your chips in if you really want to, because you're going to have to. We all know Ant's timeline is when he goes into his prime, Minnesota is going to put all their chips in. That is what they're going to do. So we'll kind of see how everything develops. Right now, it's like, what are you going to do in the West, James? Like, if you went for a guard, like, what are you doing? Like, you going for Darius Garland? He gets hurt. He doesn't play. Are you putting your chips in for Ja? Probably not. Trae Young's hurt for 4 weeks to 6 weeks right now. He'll be back, but Trae Young is someone who's maybe been connected. But the Hawks put all their chips in, it looked like, this offseason. So I don't think Atlanta wants to move Trae when they went out and got Porzingis and Nah and all these players to complement him. I don't really know. And, Boston's not moving on any guards. Orlando's not moving certain guys. Like I just don't see this world right now where like there are players available for Minnesota to even go get, unfortunately, of that caliber in the point guard position.
This is a Rob Dillingham FC. So you know what? Let's just hope that comes together. And I think
Yeah.
what you said, just we have time on our side. Ant, Jaden, Nas are young. You don't need to give everything up for a player you have questions about. Like I said, don't rush into relationships. Wait for the right person. Same thing with
Yep.
the point guard. When you make a big trade like that, it's a marriage, and impulsive marriages almost always lead to divorces. So we have time. We can figure that out, and we'll just continue to see how this season goes and what other storylines around the NBA play out. Evan, we're an hour and 4 minutes into the show,
How
man.
it goes.
I could steal you for the show for 20 hours if possible. You're awesome, man. Thank you so much.
You got it. Anytime, man. I'm just excited to talk hoops any day, especially about the team we all love. And hopefully we're on here many more times talking about positive episodes kind of like today. Let's keep it rolling.
Heck yeah, man. Let's stay positive. Let's keep winning games. Thank you all so much for listening. We have some more super fun content coming out throughout the season. If you haven't subscribed to this show, I would sincerely appreciate it because we're not stopping. We're only getting started. This is Wilder Wolves Hall of Fame Mode Fandom.